At the end of the day, we're still stuck down here with no lives and no family.
They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. With episode 6 of Severance just around the corner, we are finally entering our second half of season 2. And it looks like things are going to continue to pick up right where they left off as we continue to see the aftermath and the devastating results of the Orpo and everything that happened therein, along with the continued reintegration process that Mark is going through, and ultimately, the search for Miss Casey. And then, of course, once you factor in an awkward ham dinner or two between Burt and Irving's Audis, I get the feeling the second half of Season 2 is going to be very intriguing, to say the least. And speaking of Burt and Irving, it looks like the Episode 6 preview starts off with a scene of Christopher Walken's Burt sitting in what is most likely his home with Irving, most likely just after the ham dinner, or maybe during. As we also see a shot of what appears to be Burt at his front door, letting Irving inside. And as far as the history of awkward dinners goes, I imagine this one is going to rank pretty high upon that list. And while Burt and Irving's innies may have carried on a romantic entanglement, their Audis still know next to nothing about one another, so if nothing else, it should be a very awkward getting-to-know-you phase, and a very awkward dinner as well. Especially once you add on the knowledge that both of the Audis already know that their innies fell for each other once upon a time, which is going to make things ever more complicated with Burt's Audi already being married. And knowing those complicated feelings lie just beneath the surface, along with the added fact of Burt and Irving already lightly flirting with one another, this could get very messy very quickly. I've also heard some very interesting fan theories going around this relationship as well, in terms of people already thinking that Irving is working against Lumon, that his Audi has been a part of some kind of rebellion for some time, and there is some evidence to back that up with all of the research that Audi Irving was doing on Lumon and on the severed floor itself. And that the entire relationship with Burt has been one big trap for Irving since the beginning. So if nothing else, it should be interesting to see how this awkward ham dinner is actually going to go. But next, the episode 6 preview continues with a shot of Dylan, stating that at the end of the day, we are still stuck down here with no lives. Ever since Dylan first met his Audi's wife and family, I imagine he is already establishing feelings for them, which is going to give Dylan a very difficult path going forward to ultimately be loyal to Lumon and continuing to see his family, or to ultimately be loyal to his friends and co-workers and help buck the system. I imagine Dylan's loyalties are going to be severely tested over the second half of Season 2, ultimately putting him in a point where he's going to have to choose his family or his friends. But next, we get a very interesting piece of dialogue from Helly, stating that they give us half a life and think we won't fight for it. Now, I imagine Helly is still absolutely reeling finding out that Helena was pretending to be her for such a long duration, and especially not knowing what exactly she did during that time as well is only going to make it that much tougher. And while the relationship between Helly and Helena has never exactly been good, I get the feeling things are going to continue to escalate between the two of them as we see Helly begin to wage war on Helena. And seeing how Helena is going to respond to everything should be very interesting as well. I feel like we are already beginning to see the cracks in Helena, showing that she's not very happy with her outside life, that she's not very happy being a Lumon corporate pawn. And if it wasn't for her incredibly deceptive betrayal, I would imagine that Helly and Helena would potentially end up working together at some point. But seeing that there is so much damage between them, I get the feeling that is probably off the table. But next, it looks like we are going to continue to see the fallout of the continued reintegration of Mark. We learned a little bit earlier that reintegration is not such a simple process, but more of a gradual one, something that is going to happen over an extended period of time, and something that apparently takes even more than just one procedure. And last time we saw Mark and Ragabi, he was urging her to continue the process, with her telling him that it would be wiser to wait another day. And we also got a sneak peek at some of the grueling regimen that he is on post-op, some of the regimen that I imagine Petey maybe didn't follow as closely as he should have, which could have led to the death of him after his reintegration. And as Mark's memories begin to merge, as Audi and Innie begin to become one, I imagine they are going to have some other interesting revelations come to light that both Mark and Innie Mark are going to be startled by. Especially once Audi Mark learns about what happened between him and Helena in the tent on the Orpo. And could it potentially even come to a point where even Mark himself is forced to choose between his love for Helly or his love for his wife Gemma? And speaking of Gemma, it looks like we also get another shot of Mark inside the severed floor, maybe having another hallucination or potentially remembering another memory, as Miss Casey suddenly appears on the severed floor. similar to how she appeared to Outie Mark at the end of episode 5 when he first got his glimpse of Gemma alive and well. And I suppose it's going to be interesting to see which kind of personality is going to endure between Miss Casey and Gemma as well, and if even Gemma is still around at all, or if Miss Casey is the only thing that is left. After all, I could potentially see this playing out rather tragically, unfortunately, as Mark and the rest of the MDR team go on a grueling mission to eventually rescue Miss Casey, only to realize that Gemma's memories have been wiped entirely. During the overtime contingency, we saw that there are a few other designations of which we don't quite know what their function is, one of which being clean slate, which some believe could potentially be referring to Lumon's ability to wipe the entire memories of an innie or an outie, or even both, with some also believing that Helena mentioning the words clean slate to Miss Cobell is ultimately what made her flee in fear. And if clean slate is a memory wipe protocol, then nobody would know about that more than Miss Cobell herself, which could easily explain her fear in that scene. Overall, it could be a very tragic outcome, but could be the ultimate revenge on Lumon's part, to see Mark successfully rescue Miss Casey, only to find out that he's never able to bring his wife Gemma back again. A bittersweet ending, to say the least. And then, of course, we have Cold Harbor, and what exactly that is going to entail for the rest of the season. In episode 5, during Milchick's performance review, we learned from Mr. Drummond that the work that Mark is doing on Cold Harbor will be remembered as some of the most important work in human history. And seeing as a company as selfish as Lumon is willing to give Mark anything he needs to complete this file, including giving Helly back to the severed floor, even though Helena certainly does not want to return, it definitely goes a long way to show just how important Cold Harbor is to the company and what it will ultimately mean for their future. But overall, it certainly seems like it is shaping up that the second half of Season 2 is going to be a very high-octane ride, with Lumon getting closer and closer to their ultimate goal, and us finally finding out just what exactly Cold Harbor really is, and the ramifications it's going to have on the rest of the series. And I'm also very interested to see where Rickon's story goes going forward as well. As we see in Episode 5, it seems like his wife Devon is not too happy with Rickon willing to compromise his entire mission just to secure this paycheck. Rickon did always come across as someone who did genuinely believe in what he was preaching, so to see him so willing to compromise his values was a very interesting choice for the direction of his character. Yes, at the end of the day, he is a writer, and most writers do crave that adoration and that acceptance of their work, so it should be interesting to see where this ultimately plays out. Will Rickon go so far as to compromise his entire worldview just to secure a big Lumon paycheck, or will Devon remind him of who he really is? But that is going to do it for our preview and predictions for Episode 6, entitled Attila. And of course, the title in and of itself is incredibly intriguing as well, as it is most likely referring to Attila the Hun, who is not only famous for his military conquest, but also famous for the relationship he had with his brother, and how tragically their story ultimately played out. So it should be pretty interesting to see how the deeper meanings of Attila and his story are woven into this next episode. But definitely leave your thoughts and comments down below. What are some of your predictions for the upcoming Episode 6 and for the rest of Season 2 entirely? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming Severance content. And until next time, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one.